What is going on, Ive Warriors? So today we're going to talk about something a little bit unique, but something that I see a lot. Is intermittent fasting magical for weight loss, for fat loss? Let's tackle that specific question because I see that is getting a lot of traction for some reason. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Okay, so when I think about the term magical in fitness, it is, I don't want to say it is a negative term because it's more like a term of almost like adjacent to bro science. It's not that it is bro science or it isn't, it's just kind of adjacent to it. It's right next to it, but it isn't that. And I know that sounds incredibly complicated, but that's how I think of it in my head. I don't like to use the term magical or that anything is magical because in reality, intermittent fasting isn't magical. It's the same way as saying, is rain falling from the clouds magical? No, it's science. It's condensation. It builds up, it cracks, and then water falls from the clouds, creating rain. So there's an explanation behind that event, right? And yes, if to someone who doesn't know the inner workings or the interlocking systems behind the biology of weight loss and applying intermittent fasting and then getting the results from that, especially if they've done other things and haven't gotten the results from those other things, no matter how hard they tried, it comes off as possibly magical. Like, wow, I didn't eat for most of the day, and then I ate, and I did this for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and I saw results that I've never seen before in my life. To that person who's not really looking into the data, into the science of what's going on, that can feel magical. So I'm not here to kind of attack anyone who says, oh my gosh, you said it's magical, therefore you are wrong. No, because perception is reality. To someone who feels that this is something that finally worked, that can have a feeling of being magical, even though they probably understand that it's not magical, that there is science behind it. They just don't know what the science is. You don't know how a cell phone works. You just know that it allows you to talk to somebody across the world. But there are things in place for that to happen. With intermittent fasting, there are a few key elements that can make it feel magical. And I'm going to talk about that right now. The magical element of intermittent fasting is, one, it creates a more easier to follow caloric restriction system. Because if I told you watch your calories, find out how much you're eating, look at the labels, look at how much you're cooking, make sure you're paying attention to the oils that you're using, because fats have the highest density in terms of calories per gram than all of the other foods. So you might add more oil without even knowing and add more calories to your day, therefore putting you at a maintenance level or a net positive energy balance where you're gaining weight instead of net negative where you're losing weight. All of these things start to compile, and then you start to see there's a lot of things that I need to pay attention to if I'm eating food normally. With intermittent fasting, although this can create a roadblock in the future, when you are initially starting, especially for those who tend to be on the overweight side, when you're initially starting, what ends up happening is simply because you've created an eating window that's shorter than the normal window that you've had before to eat, simply because of that, you are now increasing the chances that you will not overeat because of this. That creates a potential caloric deficit that is very easy to follow, considering the fact that you are not even paying attention to the caloric deficit. That is one of the things that makes intermittent fasting feel so magical. And I call that the invisible walls. And because And the reason I call it the invisible walls is because you are in between the two invisible walls, and in between that is your eating window. Outside of that is your fasting window. Because you cannot graze throughout the day, someone who doesn't have those invisible walls may think, I can grab some chips here, I can grab some pretzels here, I can grab some nuts here, I'll be okay. Oh, is that an ice cream bar? I want some sweets. Oh, it's 11 o'clock, but we're watching this movie, time to get some popcorn. Someone like that has no stop. There's no stop to keep them from eating a snack here that thinks that where they think it's not going to be such a big deal, and same thing over here and same thing over there. And well, since you're watching, it's movie night, might as well eat. Well, since the kids are eating and I got to get them food, might as well get myself food, because you don't have that dynamic and you've created this invisible wall. It's, even though you're watching a movie, you know you're in your fasting time frame. That creates so much control in terms of overeating and grazing throughout the day. And those kind of things, grazing, is one of the things that increases the calories that you're eating throughout the day, and actually can create a situation where you end up overeating. And then on top of all of this, there is a biological element to fasting, where when you flip that metabolic switch, when you do the what's called metabolic switchover, coined by Dr. Stephen Anton, what ends up happening is that your body no longer has the glucose available to provide your brain with the necessary energy. Your brain is not going to just flat out not work anymore and just die. Your brain is going to be resourceful. But what this resourcefulness boils down to is, now we're going to use a stored energy source that's just there in case we need it for moments like this, which is your fatty acids. So fat tissue, fats, it pulls it from the adipocytes, which is the fat cells. Your fat cells start to shrink all over. You start to see that your body fat visibly with the subcutaneous fat start to reduce over time, obviously, but that energy is used in those moments, filtered through the liver to turn it into ketones, which is a substitute for glucose. So think of it as sweetener, as a substitute for sugar. It's not the same thing at all, but it kind of does the same thing slightly. So your brain starts to use your fatty acids converted into ketones as the energy source for while they're in the absence of glucose. But one very important thing is that your brain prefers glucose. Your brain prefers glucose. Just like normally people prefer sugar, the flavor of that, over the sweetener, even though the sweetener might provide a better situation for you calorie-wise, people prefer the sugar. So your brain can only work off of ketones for about 70 to 75% of its energy base. There is specific points for individual people. It's not always the same. Some people have different breaking points, but there's specific points where your body and your brain says, well, I can't keep just using this ketone, so I'm going to do what's called glucose neogenesis, which is breaking down some lean mass to create glucose so that your brain can get its glucose fix. So you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. I definitely 100% recommend the device Lumen, because it actually tells you if you're burning fat or carbs. And if you're in a fasted state and you do the Lumen and you see that your body's burning carbs, that means you've gone over for your specific biology and you're probably burning glucose via lean mass, which is not something that you want to be in. So you definitely should check it out. I'll put the link down in the description box, and if you want to get a Lumen for yourself, and they sponsor this channel, it's a sponsored product 100%, but I've attached myself to Lumen and that brand and that product because it's a really great tool that does not exist anywhere else. A respiratory exchange ratio device in your hand is unheard of, and scientists and researchers made this product for purposes like this. Go ahead, click the link, put Fledge Fitness 50, and you'll get $50 off if you want to know that data. It's up to you if you want to know that data. But all in all, these are the components that make up a very powerful experience when dealing with intermittent fasting, because it's specifically targeting body fat biologically via the depletion of glucose and the introduction of ketones. Because because of these invisible walls, you're creating a situation where you are more likely to eat less than to eat more. That also creates a ease of use to be at a caloric deficit instead of trying to figure out all the calories for everything that you're consuming. So when people say that it is magical, it is not magical. But to someone who doesn't understand the inner workings, it can feel that way. And the reason is because when doing other diets and not seeing success there, and then doing this one and seeing somewhat rapid success or really good success, that difference is polarizing, and it just ends up feeling magical to a lot of people. Hopefully this video has helped you guys, and of course, as always, Patreons will be pinned down in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.